general notice of the concept of ecocide and what you see, and after I take the questions.
Yeah, just you mentioned in your presentation that the Romans were already mining there. It should remind us that the first ecocides have been perpetrated by the Romans. So and it's interesting because you mentioned before about economic activity and how people feel well in economic activity. But if you see, for example, deforestation in Spain, we had a presentation about Spain before, and in south of France, the deforestation has led to a massive climate change. And this has been a first ecocide. We are still paying the tribute to that today. So, but if we see what have the Romans used the trees for, do you know that? Battleships, wooden battleships. How would we assess today the usefulness of the battleships of 2000 years ago? Do they have contributed something to the well-being of humanity? Probably not. So, what we are doing today, of course, the Romans had a limited power of distraction because they don't have motor saws and you know, all this motorized equipment to destroy forests and other things. We have that today. So we have really knowing what are the disastrous consequences. Even 2000 years later, we should really, out of this, think about responsibility. And in addition to this, we have today equipment which allows us to destruct nature in a much faster, in a much more effective way than ever before. And this brings us again back to our responsibility. What do we want? What do we consider really a progress for humanity? What is our role on this planet? And you see that many economic activities have not really been enjoyed by humanity. So I think humanity is today at the point to think, what do we really want, what we really need, what is really our role on this planet, and we never had it in such a brutal, in such a brutal way as today, with all the means we have to destruct. So, do we want really to kill ourselves, or do we want to have ben vivir? So this is the question. And you opposed before economic well-being with well-being short. I think the well-being short is the only question. The economic well-being is only a paradigm, is only a myth, somebody said before. We all believe in, but who tells you that only growth, economic growth, is the only way for well-being? I'm not arguing against capitalism, but we should see that the only virtue of capitalism is self-regulation. Self-regulation is a law of life. But this is the only virtue of capitalism. The rest is crap.
Then, questions and answers? Alors, two questions. Thomas and Nicole.
Just one small addition to Rosia Montana that wasn't mentioned, but people are aware of it, but I think it's important for everyone here to recognize when Rosia Montana would go into operation, it would produce 13,000 tons of cyanides to be dumped in that region every year. Now let's do some mathematics. 1 gram of cyanide kills an adult person. We are talking about killing twice the world population every year. And the deposits will stay there for the next centuries. So, guess figure what we are putting on burden on future generations just to have more smartphones and more gold of $100 billion.
And the cyanide will go into the water, and the water of it's in the near the border of Hungary, and it's gonna also
the
go
debate.
into the Danube River. And I want to say.
Sorry. The second patients after the answers of the debates.
I just wanted to say that Holly Higgins will tell you this. Canada is very guilty. I hope there are no Canadians here. But
There should be.
well, there should be. I'm one by birth. The mining deals often happen here. The Canadians have done. You should make a list of the destruction that Canadian companies have done around the world. And Polly will tell you about the Alberta tar sands, which is oil. But that's not just oil. There's mining history all over. If you bring that out and maybe tell the Canadian people, they're very unaware. Their whole government is doing nothing about environment at the moment. You could raise, and many Canadians are probably of Romanian origin. There are many, many immigrants who come from Romania. Move that part as well. So do your research, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of assistance out of Canada with responsible people. And that's for Spain, we do the same thing.
But it's the Canadian government, not the Canadians.
Oh, no, the government's a disaster, but the company could be made to feel guilty. Ecocide, they're committing it all over. There's a history of it.
Speakers decide who begin to answer and answer to the 2 questions.
Answer very shortly on Canadian. Canada, it's like Liberia for high sea ship flags. So that legislation only permits a company to register that in 1 day or something like that. So practically a lot of the companies are from the other states, are multinational, are used by shareholders from other states. So it's not quite Canada. I'm the adversary of them, but
No, but
it's better to be fair.
the companies sell the investments here in Geneva.
Yes. And of course, and on the other hand, it's very interesting that in Rosia Montana we have also pre-Roman mines gallery.
That's history.
So since pre-Roman until contemporary times, it's a new unique landscape of mining industrial landscape, which is very important. It's interesting that in Las Medulas in Spain, it's a Roman gold gallery, which is preserved on 450 linear meters, and it's already in UNESCO's chart. And in Rosia Montana, we have 7 or 6 kilometers of Roman gallery, and the Romanian state refused to put it on the UNESCO chart, despite of protest of civil society and scholars and so on. So the problem is also in the government. And
What I wanted also to say regarding the cyanide spill, after the project would finish, it's not the Canadian government or company that will be responsible for the cyanide. It would be the Romanian government and the Romanian civil society. That's all. So actually, there's been a lot of information about the bribes that have been put into the project. It's like millions and millions of dollars. So it's more about how it's not about, from my point of view, it's okay for the Canadian to give monies and to bribe, but then why are the Romanian government and Romanians accepting it? It says like we are trying to change that way, to make a change that way. So we are letting them, it's not them, maybe like it's not them their fault, but we are letting them do that to us.
Then, one question, two questions, three fast questions. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Bernard Nyambo. I'm from the Congo, Kinshasa. Rather, I have only 3 suggestions, very quick. Number one, it's great that people from Africa, I can count maybe 3 or 4 or 5. Next time, if you have a chance, please try to invite people from Africa as well, because they are the ones who suffer most with the problem related to the pollution coming from the north. And I will make a recommendation if we can sign a petition about the abolition of plastic material in Africa, because we don't have the technology for recycling. Thank you.
My name is Stefan Sengupta. I'm from Switzerland. I would like to just make a parenthesis and add to that mining question. Perhaps you know that all the major mining companies are now rushing to Greenland because ice is melting and it opens mining spots. That one element. Now I would like to share with you what I have observed here. It's more like, I feel it like a Copernican revolution. I refer to that naive middle-age belief that the Earth is at the center of the universe. Copernicus said, no, the Sun is the center and the Earth is a satellite. So back to what we have discussed and said, what was said, I can observe that the paradigm shift that is of similar importance is taking place. Human rights have emerged from humanist values and beliefs. In other words, that human is at the center of everything, and that nature is at the periphery and has to be domesticated and exploited to serve the center. So the shift is that the Copernican revolution that I have, what I have constantly observed, is that mainly from Muta's speech, that human is not the center anymore. So if the human is not the center anymore, it asks the question that Mrs. Moot raised: what is the role of human? What is our role? So the human is not the center anymore, so it is in the middle. The middle is of what? The middle of his environment. Being responsible and co-responsible to maintain and preserve a pre-given harmony. Not to domesticate nature, dominating it, or trying to impose a kind of a new order. And that paradigm, I call it holism. So the question is there any conflict that can emerge from a humanist perspective to, versus a holist perspective? So that's my question.
It's very interesting.
My name is Devin Grissom. I'm from the United States. Earlier, Moonton made a comment about how when we align with nature, when we align with the natural rights of nature, then we are in harmony with nature. This question is directed to Mr. Espinosa-Salas. Earlier, he made a comment, a statement that was about the right to develop in Ecuador. It seems to me that there's been a very Eurocentric approach taken in today's discussions, and I wonder if you could explain who has the right to develop and when and how does this align with rights of nature? Thank you.
I'd like to come in on this as well, if I may, because my second case of ecocide for the last 3 years has been working with the Shuar tribe in the Cordillera del Condor in Ecuador. So, shall I go first or second? Let's answer. Okay. With reference to mining, with reference to rights of nature, with reference to the question asked by the local people to the local people whether they agree with mining, yes or no, seems to be a problem all over the world. Because when it comes to natural resources in Ecuador and in other countries, the natural resources get taken before the tribal people, the indigenous people who have been protecting those lands for centuries, if not thousands of years, are in many cases not asked whether that is okay by them. I realize we're very short of time, so I just want to make a point about mining, which hasn't been made, I don't think. When we're talking about the mining of sulfate rocks, such as in copper and gold, as soon as those rocks are taken out of the ground, and air and water become exposed to those rocks, they start to release sulfuric acid. That sulfuric acid is called acid mine drainage. What is not so often talked about is the fact that that acid mine drainage releases heavy metals in those rocks, which continue to be released and are incredibly expensive to take out of the water supply. Now we can take out the acid through, for instance, lime wash, but those heavy metals, they go on down those waterways. And in Ecuador, we made maps with the environmental survey, the maps of the hydrology of the area, showing how 230 springs were going to be trashed. Now that is not ecological rights of nature. The trouble is, I believe, in the Constitution of Ecuador, that it is in the Constitution, but it is not codified into law. So we have in that country a magnificent Constitution. It is probably the best on the planet, but it is not being observed. That's my point around mining, acid mine drainage, a cancerous center of heavy metals, which bioaccumulates in the whole of the nature over periods of years, and then after about 20 or 30 years, as noticed in the Cajamar mine in Peru, the agricultural products are now so contaminated that they can't be sold. So that's probably an answer to a question actually which wasn't exactly raised.
We could continue the debate, but now we will continue with the second part of the conference. A very short one. Yes.
So I think they're important. One is regarding the environmental injustice that's happening in Africa. And environmental injustice cannot be uncoupled from social injustice, because Africa is the continent with the highest resources in the world, and it's also the continent where people have the greatest poverty, like in terms of money. So we cannot talk about environmental injustice if we don't talk about social injustice, and in the end that leads to spiritual unhappiness. So all three are kind of parts of the same whole. And the second one, regarding mining as a philosophical discussion, I see mining as a rape of Mother Earth, because digging and digging, like really exploiting her more than she can give. And that's because Mother Earth has a feminine energy. It's also a reflection of still the suppression of the feminine spirit in our society. So the way to heal that is the rise of the feminine aspect in the society and in all of us.